This video is going to cover what sleazy cops and sleazy prosecutors do all the time. Somebody is accused of a particular crime which they didn't commit, yet they turn around and find something else completely unrelated to arrest them. One afternoon, you're driving down the highway, it's a gorgeous day, everything's right with the world until you get pulled over by the police and you're wondering, what did I do wrong? And I know I wasn't speeding because I always set my cruise control at the posted speed limit. So the officer wags that finger. Of course, here comes the lecture. Young lady, do you know how fast you were going? Well, she's a lot smarter than a cop, so when she answers the question, she says, I was driving the speed limit, officer. The officer says, you need to get out of the vehicle. If you don't get out of the vehicle, we're going to pull you out. We're going to take you to jail for littering. And you're wondering, what? Well, you have to get out, and when you do, you get cuffed and taken to jail, charged officially with littering. Now, what's going on? Let's take a look.
I'm a passenger. I'm not required to identify.
It's a sentence that would eventually put Andre Rocks behind bars in 2018.
This is the incident that I had in a video not too long ago where Pasco County Sheriff's deputies on just a routine traffic stop demanded identification from the passenger who was not suspected of committing a crime. He was just sitting passively in a car. But he refused to identify. He knew he didn't have to. He hadn't committed a crime, not suspected. Well, he took a trip to jail. We're going to get into that in more detail just a little bit. But what do you think between bootlickers and the sheep and the police apologists and the uninformed public? What do you think they would say about now? Why didn't he just comply? He should have just complied. It's no big deal. Yes, it is. You don't surrender your constitutional rights to a random government worker. If you give up your Fourth Amendment rights when it comes to your person, well then when they ask to search your car if you get pulled over, why not just comply? Just comply. Make it easier. These government workers have a tough enough job. I'm sure that's what the sheep would say. What about if they knock on your front door? Yeah, we want to come in and search. Well, I got nothing to hide. Come on in. Why don't you get the SWAT team and tear the place apart? Can I get you guys any coffee? I mean, this is the stupidity. If the sheep want to give up their Fourth Amendment rights and ID the cops when they don't have to, then fine, go for it. But they've got no right to place that demand on anybody else. Couple more points. Why are the deputies doing this to this man? I mean, look at him. What is it he's doing wrong? What is it he's doing? He's sitting inside a car. Sitting inside a car almost got him beaten up and did get him chain caged and prosecuted by the government. They're doing this because they want his ID to run him for warrants. That's the common denominator behind so much of this, give me ID or else. And a lot of times the cops will say, I got to make sure you're not wanted or something. How do I know you're not a wanted murderer? And the second part of this is, and this is what's really troubling because it goes right to the heart of the law. When a law enforcement officer says there's a law that compels you to do something and you don't do it, that means that you're breaking the law and you can be subject to arrest. Well, what happened in this case? On 2 occasions, the deputy told the passenger, the law in Florida compels you to ID. And I'm just talking in generalities. And the passenger did not ID. What was he arrested for? What was he charged with? It should have been a slam dunk failure to ID. That would have been a slam dunk conviction. Well, the law says you have to ID. Either you ID or you don't ID. Because it's basically like being pregnant. You either are or you ain't. So why is it that they're not actually charging him with failure to ID? I mean, that's the slam dunk charge. No, because the law doesn't exist. It'd be unconstitutional. When there's no crime, you don't get to say, give me ID. And that's why they do this fallback crap, con job, shell game of going with resisting or obstruction. And that has to be raised in court as part of a coordinated defense strategy because everything flows from the demand of ID and becomes fruit of the poisonous tree from that point on.
If we play a game, we can pull you out and I can take you to jail for resisting.
Rocks' dad eventually told deputies his son's name, but things began to escalate when deputies tell everyone they need to get out of the van while they conduct a canine narcotics search.
I'm not asking you to, I'm telling you to at this point.
And the moment his feet hit the pavement, deputies begin handcuffing Rocks, the deputy first saying he isn't under arrest, but quickly changing his mind.
What action have I taken to commit resisting arrest? Now give me your name. That's resisting arrest. That is not resisting.
And off to a cage he goes. because he didn't identify to a deputy who had no lawful authority, demand ID because he wasn't suspected of a crime. He was just sitting in a car. And for some reason, we get back to that whole, well, you're in a car, you don't have any Fourth Amendment rights. And it works for these guys. But what about this case? Okay, it happened in Florida. So let's go find the Florida resisting without violence statute and take it from there, shall we? Well, this is the body of the Florida resisting without violence statute. Whoever shall resist, obstruct, or oppose any law enforcement officer, and you can just throw in the performance of their duty for the rest of it. Look how wide open that is. That's disgusting. That kind of language, what's resist, what's obstruct, or what's oppose? What does that mean? Well, you know what it means to these crappy cops and these corrupt prosecutors? It means, well, just do what you want. You see, when they abuse these laws, the person gets arrested, whether it's a righteous arrest or not. But wait a minute. Let's see. Illegal arrest or detention. I wonder what this is about. A defendant has a recognized right to resist an officer without violence, where the officer unlawfully arrests or detains the defendant, case law. This often occurs in situations where police confront a suspect without the requisite level of probable cause or reasonable suspicion. Fruit of the poisonous tree, everything goes back to the unlawful demand for ID under threat of force and violence. In this situation, the innocent passenger pled not guilty, and he asked for what's called a bench trial before the judge, and guess what? The judge dismissed the charges for lack of evidence. And what did that DA do in Pasco County? He actually provided the court notice of their intent to refile charges, which never happened. So he's beat the case, which should have never made in the first place. And there is a lawsuit, or was a lawsuit, and if it were settled, I just don't know. Now, the question that remains is, has the Pasco County Sheriff's Office, and by extension, its idiot deputies, learned a lesson from this? What do you think?